Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Welcome, everyone, for this live edition of Node Investor. I'm going to be doing some chart reviews. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin, at some of these alts, and the overall cryptocurrency market cap. We're going to be talking shorts. Is there a short squeeze coming? So there's going to be some look at that chart, and I'm going to keep it relatively brief. This certainly won't be a 2-hour live stream or anything like that. And I'll save a little bit of time towards the end to talk some news, talk some charts, whatever you guys want to look at. We'll look at some names, but certainly the bulls are putting in a little bit of a fighting chance here. It is a bounce at that point. This is how I am treating it. It is a bounce and nothing more than an oversold bounce attempt from these very oversold, very washed out lows that we saw on Monday. And man, was that brutal. I mean, there were some really low alt numbers here, and I was just looking at some of the prices, right? NEO was like at $14 and Omise Go was at $3, and there was some despair across the board. And so we're seeing a bounce from that, and it was due, right? We needed a bounce. So I'm going to kind of follow up on some of the thoughts I had going into yesterday's video. A lot has changed since then, and we'll take a look at some of that. So just to rehash, if you didn't catch yesterday's video, there was a couple of things I was pointing out here. First was you have this series of lower lows, right? So you had one low here, another low here, another low here. Most recently, this was the big washout low, which saw some support right above 5,800. This also corresponded with a series of lower highs. You had a lower high there, a lower high here. And today I was watching that area because that was a retest of that high, that secondary high. So getting above that would be positive. We're seeing a little bit of a pullback here. I'll get into that shortly. What I was also looking at here is the RSI. There was a bullish divergence on the RSI as this low continued to form. You had these three lows with these lower lows, but the RSI was not confirming. It was starting to rise a little bit. Now, I mentioned that's not a buy signal in and of itself, but that is certainly starting to indicate that some of the selling momentum was slowing down. And that's really all it tells you, right? It doesn't tell you when it's going to bottom or at what price, but it certainly tells you, hey, this momentum is starting to wane a little bit, something to keep an eye on. And sure enough, we saw some follow through. Yesterday, there was a potential bear flag forming as it was bouncing. It was bouncing right into that moving average. You were seeing a lot of selling. There was these wicks as it started to test that resistance, but then we saw a little breakthrough to the upside, saw a little bit of follow through. And so that's good news. It's good news that we're seeing some rally attempts here off the lows. The good news is that so far that support has not broken. But somebody was asking me earlier, are you bullish? Are you bearish? Where do I stand? I'll be clear. Short term, in the near term, I am bullish. In the intermediate term, I am still bearish until the confirmation of the upside is confirmed. So what I mean by that is I'm still bearish in terms of, is the bear market over? Are we done? Is this going to continue lower? And the reason I say that, let me go to the daily chart here, is because we had this very strong rally attempt off the lows that turned out in the big picture just to be another lower low in a big series of rally attempts. But I was talking about this 6,800 kind of being the last stand. And if it broke below that, I didn't expect 6K to hold this time. Now, technically, we broke below that, but that's not really the break I was looking for. I was looking for a close below 6K. We technically haven't seen that yet. So I guess that's the positive. You got to give it the benefit of the doubt. It's still holding support, but I'm not necessarily bullish per se in terms of that's the end of the bear. We found another low. It held support. Yay, everybody celebrate. It's too soon to tell. But, a couple videos ago, I did this is kind of a key support, 7,300. We smashed right through that. Then 68 was done, and you saw what happened there. So until we see a bounce and a retest of the low and a higher low and another trend continuing to the upside, I'm going to remain cautious. And that's just my stance right now. Doesn't necessarily mean go short, but I'm going to remain cautious, right? And so that's the approach I'm taking here. But near term, next few days, certainly today, the next few hours, the bullish momentum is favoring the upside. And so there was a couple of things to note here. For those of you that follow candlestick patterns, those of you that watch these things, there was a big hammer reversal attempt yesterday. And it doesn't need to close in the green to be a valid hammer. That is clearly a valid hammer with the close being very much near the highs. And so you can see during that session, there was a sell-off and then a quick rally attempt. If you look at the volume, it was red volume. Let me move the RSI down. But it was above average. It was above these prior red candles. And so that signifies some support. The buyer started stepping in there. Even though it's red, you got to take that as a support candle, especially coming off of the lows, right? You had the RSI sitting here near the lows. You had this big pullback. It was very dramatic. And then you had the big shakeout, undercut support levels, and then rallied higher. Now, if it would have closed in the green, it would have been a much stronger support bar, but it still closed here near the highs. And so what you do after that is you start looking for some potential follow through to the upside. And clearly we're getting that here today. So you're seeing the volume today is much higher than the prior couple of days and certainly higher than yesterday's candle. Now there is still about 4.5 hours of time left in terms of this daily candle. And, that's not a little bit, a lot can happen in 4.5 hours. And so something to keep in mind, but we are now seeing some follow through from this big hammer reversal attempt and some buyers starting to show up. And so that's good news. But is this being driven largely by short covering, or is this being driven by buyers stepping in saying, hey, BTC here near the low 6Ks, this is a good deal, right? And so I think it's probably the former. Let's take a look at the BTC charts on the short side, because I see some of you guys are asking about why we keep talking about short squeeze. And it doesn't always time perfectly, okay? So there is correlation, but it's not exact. So let me just be clear about that. But what we're looking at here is, this is the short interest, the open short interest on Bitfinex, which temporarily went longer or went higher than the longs. And so you're seeing this, right? And what this means is this is the number of contracts short BTC. So eventually they got to cover. They're hoping to cover at lower prices than when they went short at, but eventually they got to cover. So what happens is if you get a break to the upside in Bitcoin and it clears some major resistance levels, that does two things. That one forces these guys to start covering because they're suddenly experiencing large losses. But what adds to that is new buyers stepping in, right? People start seeing, oh man, this thing's breaking through, breaking above resistance. My conditional order is being filled. Market buyers start coming in. And so it kind of cascades. And what happens is these shorts are competing for one another to cover their shorts by buying back, as well as competing against the new buyers stepping in. And so that tends to cause a short squeeze. We've seen that in the past. Now, it doesn't always happen, but if the conditions are ripe, you get that. And so the last big short squeeze we saw was here in April. And if you keep an eye on that date there, right? So that's April 12th. Going back to BTC, and to be fair, I'll use Bitfinex since we're talking Bitfinex shorts here. Let me go to BTC USD on Bitfinex. And right here was that same dates, right? So that was when BTC had that big pop off the lows. We had a couple of weeks of just choppy, sitting tight, where we were about to break below 6K, and then you had that big short squeeze, short started to cover, everybody piled in, and that kicked off a little bit of a rally. But that short squeeze there, that bar there, that's what signified the short squeeze. That was the same. Let me go zoom in here a little bit. That was basically the shorts covering that day there. And that was a massive short squeeze. I mean, if you look at the, let me go over here. I'm looking at the 1 hour charts. So it's going to be kind of a ways back. Here it is. You can see how big that was. I mean, that was in a single hour. Prices went up over $1,000, right? So that was just a massive pop off the low. And then it kind of paused, pulled back a little bit, but then certainly we saw some follow through. Now, it's important to note that the alts were already rallying before that. That's not the case right now. I remember here you had Icon and you had EOS and IOTA really starting to take off, and BTC was sitting tight. And I know that because I was in some alt trades when this happened, and so it kind of gave that extra boost. I was already trading the alts versus BTC, and then when BTC had that pop, it just kind of added some some extra octane to that trade. But that's what we're talking about when you hear people talking short squeeze. What does that mean? There's a potential for that to happen. And, you know, I was letting somebody know yesterday, short squeeze doesn't have to happen from the bottom. And in fact, you can get a short squeeze near the top of a rally, because what tends to happen is if you get a lot of shorts that went in at these levels, suddenly they're underwater here as prices start to rise. And you can see that at some point, the pain becomes too much and they say got to cover, and then you get the big pop. So you can absolutely have a short squeeze at the top of a rally. And in fact, on some of the altcoin trades that I've entered here, if we see that kind of a pop, that big squeeze to the top, I'll take profits on my longs going into that strength on a short squeeze type of action there. So that's what I'm looking at here. So a couple of things to note here that I want to share in terms of resistance levels to be watching here. The first thing is this white line I put on the chart just now. That's the 50 EMA on the 4-hour charts. I use that as a little bit of a barometer to tell me at a very simple way, right? Are we long or are we short? Is the market trending higher or is it trending lower? And you can see the last time that the 4-hour chart closed above the 50 EMA was back here when prices were still near 8,200. That was the last 4-hour close. Excuse me. That was the last 4-hour close on that. And then we saw the rollover. You saw the 10 EMA drop below. And since then, it's just been bear flag after bear flag, bounce, 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 bounce. Now you can see here the price action has really changed here near the lows. It's gotten very volatile. It's very, very shaky all over the place here. This is a pretty wide range compared to the just general grind lower that we saw here. And so, oops. So prices are, let me go back to that chart, sorry. Prices have certainly gotten more volatile there. And so the 50 EMA is one that I'm using here. Sorry, guys. Where are we at? Here we go. Something that I use as a kind of a short-term indicator. And while it's still below it, then, you know, it's technically you're safe to go short. And while you're above it, you probably shouldn't be going short. You should be looking for longs. And so that's how I look at that. So that was the first kind of big resistance zone that I wanted to see cleared here. And we had several attempts yesterday. You can see these little bit of a wicks that were just kind of moving into that moving average. And this is the first candle that has gone above it. We're seeing some pullback right now. And so that's the first kind of test here. The other one was the price resistance, right? So the horizontal price resistance. And that's these lower lows that I was talking about. So you had the first one here, 66.33. You had this next one here around 65.50 or so. And so I wanted to see this little zone get taken out here on a closing basis. You get these wicks, but it's much better if you get a close in that window or above those highs, because that's going to signify, hey, there's conviction behind this move and the buyers are stepping in and holding it up. Right now, you're seeing a lot of selling into that resistance. And so we still have, this 4-hour bar is about to close. Basically, it'll close during the course of this live stream, but you're seeing this attempt to move into this resistance. And so that's what I want to note. Now, if you have a big reversal here, big volume drop to the downside and prices totally reverse, that's going to probably signify a failed breakout, and you're going to see some more downside testing here. So just something to keep an eye on. There's another potential pattern here, right? If we do pull back, you make a higher low, then you guys probably see it there. There's going to be another potential inverse head and shoulders, but those are all potentials until they actually break out and confirm to the upside. Until then, I'm just going to be watching the shorter term time frames, watching that price action here in the near term. And so let's go to that chart and go to the 1 hour. And you can see here on the 1 hour chart, let me clear this guy and this guy, and then I'll start going to the alts. You can see on the 1 hour chart, it's still a trending high, right? We had this high, pull back, new high. Right now it's pulling back. It's still above the 1 hour 10 EMA. And so they're pulling back right now, but you want to see these new highs hold and make higher lows. If it comes all the way back down here to this low around 6,300, that's a bad sign, right? So if you see this big shakedown and it just undercuts that, that's going to tell me that this bounce, this rally attempt is basically done. And so, or we're going to have that higher low established here. So that's what I'm going to be looking for here. But I'm still treating it as a bounce. It's a 1 hour attempt. You're seeing the selling pressure coming in here, but certainly the shorts are starting to cover as prices come back in. and they're trying to offset some of those losses because you had a lot of shorts here. Let me pause my alerts here, guys. Sorry about that. All right. So we can take a look at some other ones here. So some of the alts here. Oh, actually, before I go to the alts, let me go to the daily real quick because I want to show you guys what I'm looking at. If the bounce continues, then doing a couple of ways to look at the upside. One, the fib retracement level here. So if you just go peak to peak and take wick to wick basically on this bounce, then the 382 level is basically right above 6,800, which was, interestingly enough, that big support zone, the neckline that broke down, and we saw the big move lower from there. So that's the first potential upside target if this bounce continues, is that 6,800. Above that, around 71, 7,200. Going into this window right here, there's going to be a ton of resistance. I would really be surprised, honestly, if it bounces that high. And so I'm not expecting that high of a bounce. I'm looking for something more around this 6,800, maybe 7K in and around that window here on the upside. If we get a bounce that continues a short squeeze, right, would pop it right into that window too. So that's kind of what I'm looking for on the upside if this bounce continues. But like I said, I'm still intermediate term bearish, and even today here, this is the first good attempt, but look at it's still below the 10 EMA on the daily. That's a very short-term moving average, and right now this is just kind of a little bit of a break from this crazy oversold condition. So I remain cautious, but I am looking at some of these setups here on some of the alts. So let's take a look at ETH, for example. This is the big name that was really breaking down here recently. And let's go to the 1 hour chart, show you what I was looking at here. And so yesterday we had this attempt, right? We had the big smackdown, felt very climactic. There was a lot of despair, bearishness, a lot of people here talking about a breakdown is imminent, get out of the way, sell everything. This is not a drill. I mean, it's like, okay, where were you, right, when it was $300 higher, right? Or even $100 higher? To be calling that at the bottoms kind of gave me a little bit of a signal there. But so you had this first attempt at a low, then you had another attempt there, and I hadn't done anything here. I was just kind of waiting for some confirmation because this could just have easily rolled over and broke down and made a new low. But once you saw this break of a trend line here, and keep an eye on this right here because this same pattern showed up on various alts on the USD pairs. And so you had this low, you had a second low, it held, and the thing to be watching was this trend line, right? And then you had the big pop right through, and you see how quickly that moved, and then we just sat tight. And so we had a secondary entry point right here, and this is the point that I was looking at here, right? You had this pop, and you had like a little break to the upside here. Now you're getting a pullback, normal throwback after that breakout, but we want to see it hold. If it breaks below this support zone down here, right, which created that pattern, then it's done. It's a failed breakout at that point in my book. It's done, and I would get out of the way personally. So that's what I'm looking at here. So the must hold level on these type of patterns is the lows of that consolidation, right? A pullback here after the breakout, that's fine, that's normal, not that big of a deal, but ultimately it's going to be Bitcoin that drives the direction of this. I'm looking at the alt as a way to outperform. So if BTC continues to the upside, then I'm looking at some of these very beaten up alts to outperform on a percentage basis here in the near term. And so that's the thing to be watching here on ETH. Looking at EOS, same thing, right? So you had a low, you had this very tight consolidation here near the lows yesterday, and then big break to the upside, followed by another consolidation here. And this is the 1 hour chart, keep in mind, very shorter term time frame. Now you had that big break a few hours ago, getting a little bit of a pullback right now, going to the 4 hour chart, still holding above the 10 EMA, but this big reversal wick is not going to look pretty when that closes. So something to keep in mind here. It's 5 minutes away from closing on that 4 hour candle. And so that's what we're looking at here. NEO, I mean, most of these are going to start to look the same here. You'll notice NEO, similar pattern. You had this big trend to the downside yesterday, the big pop, pullback, another pop to the upside here. So we'll see if this pullback holds here. So NEO, here's the trend line to be watching down there. And ideally, you want all of these to hold these trend lines. If they start to break below, then it's kind of done here for now. Long-term buying today, I am not buying for long terms today. I'm still not convinced that the bear is done, right? Could that have been the low? Absolutely, right? But I'd rather wait for more confirmation before I start doing long-term additions at these levels. But some of these prices, no doubt, are crazy attractive from a long-term perspective, especially for the ones that you believe in, right? And that's, I'm going to make a whole separate video on that because I've been getting a lot of questions. Hey, should I sell now? Should I get out of the way? I'm down 80%, 90%. What would you do? And there's a couple of different ways to approach it, but I think it warrants its own discussion. So I'm going to post a separate video on just that topic here. I don't think it's as simple as some people are making it out to be, because you're seeing both extremes, right? You're seeing, well, at this point, you're down 90%, just ride it out, just hodl. And then you're seeing the other extreme, well, screw it, you're down 90%, but save your last 10% and get out of the way, right? It's all going to zero. So it's not that easy. It's not that simple. And so there's a happy medium there, and a lot's going to depend on where you got in, when you got in, and how heavyweight you are alts versus BTC. So there's a couple of approaches that I will share in terms of what I would do, and I'll post that here later. So all right, so that's NEO. So looking at that here, you're seeing the same pattern, but again, near term, watch this little bit of a consolidation here. If it starts to break below, that's going to signal we're probably done for now. Cardano, I'm just kind of going down the list of some of the bigger cap names here, and then I'll get to your guys' list. Looking at Cardano, you can see it had a rally attempt, try to break out here out of this trend line, but it's right now pulling right back in. Bitcoin Cash, something very similar there. I'm going to start moving through these quickly. Rally attempt out of this little consolidation, pulling in right now. It's not over yet, so it's just kind of pulling in, but if it certainly starts to undercut this low, then it's done. What else here? Some of the other ones. Ripple on Binance here. It's a pretty big pullback there. Volume on that's, it's certainly above average, not higher than those green bars, but not looking pretty yet here. So want to see Ripple hold here. If you're long Ripple on this recent consolidation here, it's got to hold. Otherwise, that's just going to be a confirmed bounce right into resistance. And probably, it could very well be, right? You had this move right to resistance here. You can see the resistance, horizontal price resistance on a lot of these names was that little window right there. So a lot of them have already moved into that zone and are pulling back from that right now. Let's go back to BTC here, because that's going to ultimately drive a lot of what happens here in the short run. So you can see broke out earlier, it's pulling back in pretty good right now. It's rolling over. We'll see if it can find a higher low here. But the level that I'm watching on BTC here in the near term, this is very short term, guys. I'm talking like today. The level I'm watching here today is going to be right around that 6,300. So a break below that, that's going to confirm that this higher low did not hold. As long as it holds above that and makes a higher low above that, then technically the trend is still in place, right? By definition, it's made a low, it's made a new relative high. Here's another high, here's a low, technically made a new relative high here recently. But if this is broken, that changes it, and it would be over at that point. All right, let's see here. Go into some of these comments here real quick. Let's see here, BTC stop loss. Okay, so that's 6,300 is the number to be watching right now, guys, is really the higher low, or maybe a little bit below if you want to use that wick, 6,280 or so. That's going to be the level I'm watching. At what price would you place buy orders if you should, not to miss out on the rally? Personally, I'm leery of going with conditional orders in this market right now. I would rather look for a push higher and then buy into a pullback to a moving average or something like that than buy on a breakout. You could have a big breakout to the upside and short squeeze, absolutely, but I'm just leery of buying in this market on the breakouts because of this, right? You get these wicks to the upside. We saw Kraken yesterday. Oh man, I guess that would have been good if you had a short order that got filled at the highs. But look at this wick. I mean, it went from 6,000 to 6,800 basically and pulled right back in. And so I just don't like going with conditional buys in this market environment just because it's very risky for one on the upside. So I'd like for it to push higher and then look for a pullback from which to enter there. Or look for a touch to the moving average, and then when it starts to curl back up off the moving average, then that's what I look for, because then at that point I have an established low. I have a place of support to watch. So in the case of BTC, now you're watching this level. If you bought the pullback, or if you bought just after the pullback, and you're watching that, if it breaks, then that's your stop, right? If you're trading, that's just the name of the game, right? You take a shot, you have a stop loss point in the chart, and if it gets below that, you just get out of the way. Simple as that. And you take profits quick, because counter trend trades are higher risk and lower probability, right? You should not expect for a bounce that's going to fully retrace. I mean, that's just not the way it happens, right? You're going to have a bounce and it's going to be choppy. You'll have some downside testing, a higher low, and you'll have a bounce. And so if you're trading it, you take those profits quick, in my opinion. That's the way I'm approaching it here, just because the market, it's the momentum is still to the downside. I mean, near term, it was, it's clearly moving good, but the momentum is still, the big picture intermediate trend is absolutely still to the downside. And so that's just something we got to keep in mind. Looks like it's about to bust through the 6,300 as we're watching this. Time to go short. I'm kidding, guys. Let's see here. Maybe not. I might. Can we? Okay, yeah. Let's take a look at some of these other names here. So you want to see Ethereum Classic, ETC. I'm gonna go on Bitfinex dollar first here. Looking at that, still technically making that higher low right now. We'll see if that can hold. Ethereum Classic this is the 1 hour chart, by the way. So that's going to be the level to be watching. Does it hold above this 1170? Call it that, 1170 and around there. But it did make a new relative higher high here today. So not looking too shabby there. But the thing is, this is going right into resistance right here. This is a big wall of resistance on the way up. You can see it's basically fully bounced right into that right now. So you're seeing that pullback. And so that's going to be a big hurdle to overcome. If it can get above that $13, $13.20 or so, that'll look positive. Zcash. Go to Zcash dollar on Bitfinex there. Oh yeah, they had that gap there a few days ago. But Zcash, I mean, that was a big break from about 150 down to 120 or so. Man, swift move lower. What percent was that? It was about a 22% move in that day. Huge. So clearly an oversold bounce at this point. Looks like it may be done though, because it started to roll over here. And let me highlight that for you guys here. That's really going to be the price point to be watching. Breaks below that 134, then I would just wait and get out of the way personally and look for a higher low to be established from that point. So at least from a trading perspective, that's how I would be trading it. Let's see here. Some of the names that were popping earlier on some of my alerts here. Let me pull them up. Where is it here? There was quite a few moving earlier. Moving good. Quantum was definitely on the alert. Lisk was on the alert. Let's go take a look at that. Lisk. Oh yeah, Lisk definitely popped. Big move to the upside earlier. See if that's it. It bounced right into resistance though. I mean, that was certainly a strong move, but look at where it paused. I mean, it came pretty close to that right there. So if it consolidates here and puts in a little bit of a bull flag, that'd be nice to see. But pretty good move on Lisk there. Who else was moving here earlier? QuantStamp, huh? Let's see here. QSP. Yeah, not a bad little move. Some good volume coming in there off of that. A little bit of a bull flag forming here as BTC pulls back. This is versus BTC pair. Dragon was moving. Lisk. Kind of just looking at another screen here. Omisego USD, Ripple USD, a lot of the USD pairs, but we already saw those. They were all moving earlier. So, all right, let's take a look at some of your guys' names here. Nano. Oh, that's right. Nano was moving. Yeah, a lot of these alts have had these very big moves off the lows, and that's not unusual, right? You get that reaction. Wow, look at that, 45%. Not bad. I mean, and would have been tough to buy that falling knife there, but if you would have bought the breakout, that's not a bad 30% move there. Oh yeah, I saw Pay 10x was moving. Yeah, ICX. Let's take a look at ICX because I was watching that earlier. We'll take a look at ICX versus BTC as well as the USD pair. So looking at ICX, you had this double bottom technically, right? You had this low form here and this second low here, and very similar to some of these other charts we were just looking at. The thing to watch was this trend line broke above and just really started to move, and we had that pretty decent move higher. But versus BTC, this was not really performing too good, right? You had this high yesterday, and it's pulling back, and it's just making these lower highs. So could be it for now. I'm not liking the way it's looking from a BTC side. There's going to be a clear overhead resistance trend forming here on ICX now. Looking at it from the USD pair on Tether, and I'm looking at 1 hour charts here, guys. You can see it looks like it may have put in a pretty decent top right around 50, let's call it 58 cents, 57 cents, in and around there. Starting to confirm that to the downside now with a break below 51. And so looking a little double topish. Neo, we did take a look at Neo. Let's take a quick look at it again. I had that pretty good break from 2 trend lines here. Another flag here, a big break. It's pulling back right now, trying to hold the line. A lot's going to depend on Bitcoin, but let's see if Neo can hold the line. How's this looking versus BTC? Yo, ooh, a little double topish too. Looking a little double topish on the Neo hourly charts. So what I'm watching here is you had this break, had a pretty good rally yesterday, peaked right around there, had another rally, slightly lower top. You'll get that confirmation if it breaks below, what is that, 0.024, 0.025 or so, in and around there. Still hasn't technically, so it could just as easily form a nice symmetrical pattern here and break higher. But that's going to be the level to be watching here, that 2.6, call it 2.7, and on the downside about 2.48. Money strategies are key. Cost average. Yeah, well, it depends if you're taking a long-term investment approach versus trading. Because on trading, at least for me, my rule is you don't ever cost average into a trade. So you can scale in on the upside, but never add to a losing trade. That's kind of a golden rule. If you're taking a long-term approach, it's totally different. I get it. It's not a dead cat pounce. It's a dead bull bounce. Is that a thing, dead bull bounce? We just made it a thing. All right. What's your opinion on candles versus the Heikin-Ashi charts? Heikin-Ashi is nice because it gives you the trend, and it looks at multiple time frames. But here's the thing with indicators, and let me preface it by saying this, right? Indicators are great. Price action and volume for me is first, but Heikin-Ashi is just another indicator, right? It's a way to spot trends, and they are absolutely fine if you use them in context and you use them correctly. And that's the thing with all indicators. A lot of folks will get excited about a specific indicator, and the challenge with indicators is it can very quickly become the hunt for the holy grail. And there is no holy grail in indicators, guys. I hate to burst the bubble, but there is no holy grail in indicators that works 100% of the time in every market condition. That's just not the way they work. Certain indicators are used in certain market conditions. They're kind of like tools in a toolbox. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a saw, and it just depends on what you're trying to build. And if you're looking at trends, then Heikin-Ashi candles look fine. If you're looking at trends, if you're looking for momentum, you look at something else. If you're looking at oversold, overbought, if you're looking at retracements, targets, then you do a different indicator. So that's kind of my rant on the indicators. But back to your question, If you look at the Heiken Ashes, you can see here, right? These are trending candles, so clearly they're green, they're trending. Here, the red, technically the trend is broken. Here, green, red, vice versa. And they work on different time frames depending on how you're using them. So right now you flipped green here on the daily. That's good, but the daily is not done, so it could quickly go back to red. 12 hours flipped green for two bars in a row. That's good. So they're okay. I mean, I don't use them personally. I'd rather just stick to the traditional price action candles and go from that. All right, let's see here. You can use Ichimoku, wave trend. So just stick to a few though. That's kind of at the end of the day. That's the specific indicator and strategy you use really doesn't matter. You can make money using a whole bunch of different types of strategies and indicators, but don't take the shotgun approach. Don't have like 10 indicators on your chart and oscillators and this and clouds and parabolic SARs and 5 moving averages, and it's a little overboard at that point. If you need that many indicators, then you don't have a clear strategy in place to trade from. Simple as that. All right, so looking at ontology. Ontology is not looking too shabby here on this 1 hour chart. So I did have that break point on the downtrend, still technically double bottom. You had this rally attempt here, another breakout earlier today, holding up relatively well and bouncing or pulling right back into the 10 EMA on that 1 hour. So ontology is looking pretty good here from the USD pair. Let's see how it looks on the BTC side. Still looking relatively well here as well. You can see the volume patterns on ontology are looking nice. One thing to keep in mind here is like with all of these, and I mentioned in the video, right there, it's going to be a lot of hurdles on the way up. It's not going to be a straight V bottom. We're going to blast right through all resistance. There's a lot of overhead resistance now. And so on these bounces, watch these first levels of resistance. You're going to start to see some profit taking, some pulling back from those levels, and ideally some consolidation below that and then a break higher. But if you start to see a big reaction lower from these type of resistance levels, then it's going to probably signify that that's likely the end of the bounce. Let's go back to BTC here. We're going to be watching this one closely during this stream. So seeing a little bit of support coming in here right at that line at 6,300. But this new 1 hour candle just flipped over. Got a lot of time left in it. The last 4 hour candle, not very positive, to be honest with you. Don't like the way that closed because that looks like a failed attempt to break resistance here. If you look at that, we wanted to see a close here in the 6,500s, ideally above 6,550, which would have been a close above the top of this wick. So the fact that it didn't is negative right now. So it's something to keep an eye on, something to make note of. You had that big push higher, couldn't close. We'll keep an eye on it here during the course of this stream here. Let me take a look at some more of these charts here. I'm looking at some of these names here. Monero, Wanchain, IOTA. We'll do that. Monero was looking pretty good here earlier. Let me go to Monero on Bitfinex. Yeah, it's still looking pretty decent here on the 4 hour, holding up the 10 EMA on the 4 hour. On the 1 hour, still making that higher low pattern. And so not too bad here. You can see it had a double bottom right there, right? Here's this big wick, but technically this nice little double bottom. You had a breakout confirmation of that double bottom here, which was $85. And since then, been making higher lows so far, right? This new one just started, so we'll see if that pattern continues. So Monero's looking pretty good here, but again, that's going to be kind of the line in the sand for me for a lot of these names. That most recent swing low we saw on the 1 hour charts. Below that, then I will change my tone in terms of the short-term bullish patterns we're seeing. Wanchain, there's a chart I haven't looked at in a while. Let's go see Wanchain. Man. All right, just to torture everybody on the stream here, let me see how far Wanchain fell from the peak here. 90%. Hey, it's not too bad. 90%. It's doing better than half the cryptos out there. Oof, brutal. All right, so looking at Wanchain, it's still, I mean, obviously the daily chart is nowhere near being bullish. So Don't misunderstand me. These are bounces, and this is why I'm saying these are just bounces. You can see the 4-hour chart just kind of rolling over now, bounced right into that 10 EMA. One close above, seeing some reversal action now. Now it's breaking below the most recent lows there on that 4-hour. So versus BTC, looks like it's confirming a little bit of a double top here. You can see that's here, that's there, and this is trying to hold right now, but unless you see a big bounce higher, it's not going to look too pretty here in the short run. So WAN chain above this level, though, if it can get above that 1185 or so, you got some open space here before you get to the next big resistance level. So many of these look that way, so that's good and bad. IOTA. As a U.S. resident, where should I look to now that Bitfinex is closing trading? Now, Bitfinex closed trading a long time ago, I thought, for U.S. I know they kicked me out a long time ago, but it depends on what you want to trade. Technically, I mean, if you're looking for just altcoins, then Binance is a great option. If you want to trade a U.S. based big cap name, right? There's Coinbase Pro. There's a few other names. If you're looking for margin, technically there's Kraken for margin on US, although the UI there sucks. There's a few. There's Bittrex, which sucks too. So many of these exchanges, man. I'm rooting for crypto exchanges. I don't want the big banks and the big guys to come in and own the space, but I got to tell you, the user interface and the clunkiness on some of these exchanges it's not up to par yet. Some of them are good, but a lot of them are not. They suck. And the fees are not exactly cheap either. I don't mind paying fees. I'm great with somebody providing a market space, but if you're charging that much, damn, your stuff better be better than that. All right. Let's see here. Let's talk about VeChain and Tron. So we'll look at Neo. So what EMAs are you using? I'm using the 10 EMA right here. I use it on, especially because I trade on the 4-hour charts a lot. So I like the 10 EMA on the 4-hour. It works well on the daily. There's a couple of variants that you can use on the EMAs. 10-hour, or excuse me, a 10 period. You could do a 9. You could do a 12. There's a couple of them. You could do a 1026 or a 1226. That's helpful for looking at crossovers. Right now, we still haven't seen a crossover here on IOTA. I use a 10 EMA and a 26 weighted, but I don't have the 26 on all the time, just when I need to check crossovers and stuff. And then I use the 50 as kind of a nice gauge. Are we above or below? IOTA is still very much bearish. BTC was one of the first to start trying to break above the 50. And that's really it. I don't use a whole lot other than that. I know there's other folks that will use 21 period or 50, 100, 200. My trading is generally a little shorter term than that, so I don't pay too much attention to the 200s and the 100s. 50 works. All right, let's keep going here. So let's go back to IOTA. Sorry, we want to look at IOTA real quick. IOTA, man, IOTA. 46 cents IOTA. Down, just to torture everybody. Wow, I mean, it's almost back down to the October lows. Oh my goodness. 92%, worse than WAN chain, IOTA. You are worse than WAN. All right, so looking at IOTA, oh, you don't want to check at the BTC chart, do you? No, we don't want to check the BTC chart. So this one, I mean, it's same pattern, nice little flat bottom here at the lows. You can see once, this is such a key concept, guys, when it comes to technical analysis and trading, right, is the concept of support and resistance. And it doesn't have to be horizontal price resistance. It could be a trend line resistance, just like we've seen in some of these other names, but something you want to just be aware of, right? I mean, when you see a price rejected at a certain point over and over and over and over again, that's a very clear resistance. But you also notice on the downside, right, the support was coming in, and not only that, it was starting to rise here, and price really tightened up here towards the right side of this little zone. And so a break above that, you can see how quickly things accelerate when they finally break above resistance. And it works the same way on the support side. When something tests and tests and tests and tests, finally breaks it, it breaks down quick and it breaks down hard. And so just a very key concept, but huge when it comes to looking at charts and trading and where are those price points that matter, right? There's a lot of points along the way that may not matter as much, but when you start to see that develop, it becomes very clear at that point. So looking at IOTA, you can see it's technically still making a series of higher lows and higher highs here, but I'd be watching this here near term. You're starting to see this break down a little bit, but lots going to depend on BTC here. How's IOTA looking versus BTC? Yeah, still technically holding right here, so it's holding up. Not too shabby here. If it can break above this little bit of a resistance level right now, then you got a pretty good ways to go to the upside before you hit the next big wall. So that's what you're rooting for there. Well, not that big of a ways, but versus BTC, it's a big ways. All right, let's keep going. Litecoin. Have not looked at Litecoin yet. We're looking at Litecoin on the USD side here. How big of a move was this? Man, Litecoin, $50 Litecoin, $49 technically. It's already bounced 20% peak to peak. It's pulling in right now here. Pretty good move on Litecoin here, but you can see this also right into resistance, like so many of these names, just bouncing right into resistance. And that's what you expect on a move off the lows. Oversold bounce, generally you start looking for those resistance points. The first point would have been right here. And you can see that is where prices paused very briefly, right? You had a brief bounce right into that, little consolidation, break right to the next resistance, but now it's pulling back pretty good. Can we see $10 NEO? Man, you can technically see $10. Absolutely. You can see anything in this space, but dang, if you would have asked me $14 NEO even a month ago, I would have said, "Shoosh, I would not be I would not be expecting that." But wow, who would have thought? Who would have thunk it? Let's see here. What about long term? If I think Bitcoin breaks under 6K, this market will retrace basically to being dead for about 6 months to a year. Yes, technically, but yes, but. So here's the yes and here's the but. If Bitcoin breaks 6K, then the next level that I'm looking at is 5,000 plus or minus, right? Talking somewhere between 52 to 4,800. So this little zone is what I'm looking at as the next support. And then below that, you've got a solid support at 3K and then anywhere in between there. But personally, I'm not looking for that low, but you could, right? You could absolutely see that. So if it breaks below and you continue down to 4,800, 5,000, is it just going to flatline and go dead for a long time? Normally, you get an accumulation period, right? So you have this choppy action and then you have some floor that serves as kind of the ultimate bottom. And you just tend to have this kind of meandering along the ways and it gets almost boring and kind of flat for a while. But that serves as a good accumulation, a good floor, and then it pushes higher. And so your question is, would we see a 6 month to 1 year dead market? Technically, if you consider that accumulation zone a dead market, then that's what you would expect to see. But, and here's the but, you still have the ETF and some potential catalysts hanging out there. So let's say we do break and we flatten out, but then let's say there's an ETF approved early 19, right? That would change the picture. That would mean that I would really not expect to see another year of flat market in light of that. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, these big moves are hitting the stops, no doubt. It's very shaky, very volatile. And so if you're trading or if you're trading up or down, doesn't matter if you're going long or short. I'm doing two things. I'm keeping the trades smaller than normally. And I'd rather buy the dips than the breakouts because then you make for a little bit of a tighter stop. But that's the challenge right now. You get these big wicks and they're just kind of all over the place. There's a lot of stop hunting, both on the bull and the bear side. There's, and things get very volatile at the lows and at the tops, right? You get this very shaky action. And sometimes the best course of action is just don't trade at all, right? When you see a market doing this, where it's, it's not trending anymore. It's just it's going like this, right? That's tough trading. So get chopped up here pretty good if you're not looking at the shorter time frame. So just something to keep in mind. Either stay smaller or stay on the side, right? So yeah, absolutely I use stops. I absolutely use stops. And that's part of the game. Sometimes you get wicked out. Happens to the best of us. All right. Emerging currencies falling hard. Yeah, no doubt. There's some, if you look at the Forex markets, there are some good smackenings happening across the board in the Forex space. Where's the euro dollar? Euro dollar getting smacked here. And the dollar has just been strong, which is also impacting the precious metal space. So if you look at names like the GLD or the GDX, they're getting smacked. Ooh, we thought the crypto market was getting smacked. Look at that, smacking across the board. Strong dollar is breaking a lot of the commodities for sure. Absolutely. Looking at SLV, somebody was asking about that. It's the same thing. It just broke down, right? There was this big symmetrical pattern forming, big break to the downside. It's going to be retesting these lows around 13 bucks. GLD, same thing. Big break to the downside. So, and it's been broken. You know, it's not, this is nothing new. This is just kind of it's getting climactic now, but it's been broken for a couple of months now. All right, BTC, back to these. PMs are dead. I'll tell you guys something funny here. Well, not funny. I guess it's not funny. So let me go back to the GLD. So I do watch the PMs, and I'll switch asset classes from time to time, and I'll watch the markets. And back here, when BTC, where was it? Right here. BTC was peaking out end of last year, and gold was taking a smackdown. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. Right here. Right. BTC was peaking, and the gold to Bitcoin ratio was like 15, 17. Like, it was crazy high, right? It's clearly not that anymore. If you look at the BTC to gold ratio, it's much lower. But at that point, I was like, gold BTC is that high? And, you know, I moved some profits out of the crypto space altogether, and I pushed some into GLD, into some of the gold stuff. And you know, and at first I was thinking, damn, that was a bad move. But I mean, I look at this now, I'm like, oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. My GLD is down 10%. Boo-hoo. But you got to keep in mind, right? That was me taking profits at, you know, 18K, 19K BTC. So do I care that GLD is down 10%? Not one bit. In fact, I'm thinking, okay, now might not be a bad time to push it back over to the other side, back to BTC. It'll buy me way more BTC than it did back here. Just something to keep in mind. All right, so Turkey is cheap. Let's see here. Neo, Ripple. We did some of these. I think I've done Neo twice, guys. We'll take a look at it towards the end here, but let's take a look at some of these other ones. Tell us about the trading courses here. I just wrapped up my video portion of the trading course on trading psychology. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm trying to keep the videos short on the trading course because you shouldn't have to sit through like 15 hours of trading course, right? It should be relatively short snippets. I think the longest one will be maybe 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try to keep them short, 10, 15-minute video segments. Keep going. Hold on, I'm looking. I'm checking them out. Oh yeah, Tron. Sorry, I missed that one. Looking at Tron. But yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think about the cryptocurrency space and you look at the world currencies, and you know, there's clearly some currency wars going on, and there's some nations having a currency crisis, right? And crypto's kind of in that, right? You see BTC is kind of being part of that entire crypto, you know, or excuse me, the entire currency crisis that you're starting to see there. And crypto is certainly taking its hit as well. So Tron, okay, Tron. Damn, Tron's ugly. So Tron Daily, this is versus BTC. You know, it had a rally attempt, but look at the 10 EMA is still way up here, going to the 1 hour charts. And on all of these guys, when I'm trading the alts, I'm trading them from the USD side and not the BTC side, because if Bitcoin takes a big hit, they're going to take a big hit too. So, but this one had a very similar pattern. This looks almost identical to, like, you know, some of the Neo and some of, you know, quantum stuff where you had this low, second low, the big push higher. But this one has not been able to make a new push to the upside versus BTC. It was attempting to do it on the USD pair. You had a breakout attempt, but it's now starting to roll over, maybe a failed breakout. Not confirmed until it breaks below this technically, but it's not looking too hot here in the near term. Sorry, let me move that. How's volume? Oh yeah, selling volume is definitely bearish here. It's starting to spike here, and it's above average, and it's above these prior green bars. So Tron's not looking too good there. BTC, what's BTC doing here? Yeah, it's testing that 6,300 line, but it's really pushing back here. Looking at the BTC short story again. You were seeing some short covering starting to roll in here earlier today. There was a pretty good push to the downside on the shorts as Bitcoin was breaking higher, and it looked like it was about to go on a little bit of a run. That's since paused here, so we'll see if the shorts continue to get squeezed or if that was it. Oh, Binance coin. Let me look at Binance. I was watching that earlier. All right, so real quick, I'm going to switch to some segments, some news stuff here, because there are some lessons to be learned. My goodness. Did you guys see the article? And there was a Reddit post about somebody who borrowed $100,000 or $130,000 in December to invest in crypto. And now I think it's costing them $3,000 a month to service that loan, and their account is down like 85%. And guys, please, I mean, it's probably too late now if you did it, but please, if you're going to borrow money to invest, which is always a bad idea, right? It's always a bad idea to borrow that much money to invest and speculate. It's not really investing, you're speculating at that point. If you're going to do that, don't do it after the market's at the top of a parabolic run and it's already up almost 2,000%. And some of the other names on the list were like Lumens and all that stuff. I mean, you're asking for it if you're borrowing $100,000 to speculate in crypto if you don't have the money to support that. But you're really asking for it if you're borrowing money to invest in crypto right here. Oh man, I feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, it's kind of like, that's just not a smart move, dude. Just not a smart move. So rule number one when it comes to trading and investing, rule number one is do not trade and invest with money that you cannot afford to lose. I mean, you have to be willing to go in this and say, hey, if I make a mistake or if I get hacked or something happens and if I lose 100%, like, I will not be on the streets, right? Nobody wants ramen that bad. So that's rule number one. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to knock the guy, but that's an important lesson for everybody. Just, and that's why I also don't advocate trading on margin. I mean, unless you're experienced and already good, just stay away from margin because you can have the same effect. You can get liquidated and you'll be done. But just something to keep in mind. It was in UAE dollars. I get it. Okay. Either way, still a lot of money. Still a lot of money. Just don't do it. What was the other one we saw today? Somebody was suing AT&T because they had that, where they jack your phone and they copy it and they get access to all your accounts and all that fun stuff. And he's suing AT&T because he had $100 million. Oh no, I'm sorry, $24 million? Anyway, it was a lot of money. Okay, rule number two. Okay, I'm okay with leaving money on the exchanges to trade and all that stuff, but if someone can access 100, whatever, however many millions of dollars by jacking your phone, you're doing it wrong. It's like, oh my goodness, people. It's okay to have some on the exchange, but if you got that much, tens of millions, oh boy, oh boy. There's been some wild stories in this crypto space lately. Some wild stories. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to do a few more, guys, and then I'm going to wrap it up and get some lunch and drink some green tea and look at some charts and try to finish up my course for you guys too. Yeah, we need volume like fab. Let's go to the coin market cap here. Looking at the coin market cap, BTC dominance is slightly pulling back here. It did peak at over 54% yesterday here, 54.5%, starting to pull in a little bit as some of these alts are bouncing here from these crazy lows here at the point. Let me zoom up for you guys here. Let me go to the year. But that's been quite the run in BTC dominance. I mean, it's way up there now. So had that pretty good pop to the upside, up 54%. See how much higher it could go before the alts really start to stage a little bit of a comeback rally here. And they're just so crazy oversold. It would not surprise me to see some more alts. But yeah, BTC dominance just continues to move to the upside, and you're seeing a rotation out of the alts. And everybody in crypto Twitter is now a Bitcoin maximalist as the altcoin market continues to collapse. So if you missed it, I'll drop a link to this at the end of the stream here. I'll update my notes. But I believe it was in July, I posted a newsletter talking about valuations in the crypto space, and I think it was like end of June, early July, and I think I titled it like the Great Valuation Reset, because we had already seen a ton of alts at that point pull back. And the most important thing I wanted to make note there was, the big point I was trying to make is the altcoin market, the crypto market, if you look at the total dollar value of one of these tokens, right? So let's just take a simple example here. Tron, that's a good example. If you look at the dollar value of Tron, right, it had a market cap of, where is it here? Right, of 16 billion at the heights, and then I think when I was writing the newsletter, it was still down to like 3 billion. The important thing to make note of here was, of that 3 billion or 16 billion or whatever billions, right now 1.2 billions, the vast majority of that dollar valuation is speculative value, and that's it. Purely speculative value. It's at the whim of the market. It's just supply and demand, fear and greed, speculation. That's it. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't necessarily mean don't trade it or don't invest it, because every asset class has some percentage of its valuation that accounts for speculative value. Every stock, I mean, you see some PE ratios that go through the roof. There's a big portion of speculative value. But the point was, so many of these names have a very small network value, intrinsic value, however value you want to say it. They have a small number of that, and if the market decides to dump and to freak out, then you see the speculative value quickly shrink. And so my approach to quote unquote long-term investing in the crypto space is, you got to treat this like you're investing in a startup. And you know that when you invest in a startup, you take the VC mentality, you know that, hey, 80% of these guys are probably not going to make it. They probably won't be here in 5 years. But the ones that do are going to make it big, right? And so that's kind of the approach you take. And that's if you're just a pure buy and holder kind of person. If you're a little bit more active, then it's a little bit of hybrid approach. You still have that mentality, but you're also booking gains along the way. You're not a pure hodler, right? If something pumps and it goes up 100%, 200%, then you take some of that off the table and you roll it into Bitcoin or something else, right? And so it's just something to keep in mind. I'll post a link to that here at the end of this stream here, just because it's still applicable, and it always will be in this space that's just so young. $200 billion market cap. I mean, very speculative, right? But I'm a believer. I'm not saying that space is going to go away and going to just die and collapse altogether. Of course not. It's here to stay. But valuations will fluctuate wildly. And of this 1,800 names on coin market cap, I mean, all of us understand that the vast majority of those names are just crap coins, right? We all know that. Hopefully we all know that. They're just all crap coins. But some of them aren't. Some of them will be here. All right, let's do a few more, guys. Looks like Neo. Looks like we'll check the charts for Substratum and Link. Oh yeah, Link's been doing pretty good. All right, we'll do a couple more here. Substratum. Oh, those are old charts, old numbers, old levels to be watching. Let me clear all this stuff first. So looking at sub, it's got a pretty good hammer reversal attempt here. Let me pull the volume in. I would have loved to see a lot more volume on that. That would have made it a stronger hammer here, stronger reversal, but not too shabby versus BTC. Still looking pretty good. You've seen some volume coming in. A lot of volume with no movement. A little bit of a caution there, but like most names, you can see this guy just has bounced right into a little bit of a resistance zone. Some good volume, but it feels just like a bounce. You know, sorry to say, but most of these names, they feel just like a bounce at this point. So I'm going to be watching how they react when they start to break down below some of these trend lines. If you see a break and it just forms like a higher low and starts to go, that's good. If it's a sharp move lower, it's probably signifying the end of the bounce and maybe a new low. So I don't believe we're out of the woods yet, guys. I don't think the bear is dead. Certainly the bulls are putting in a little bit of a fighting chance here. Monday felt like capitulation. The sentiment in the sphere certainly felt like capitulation. The depression levels, the despair, absolutely. I mean, it was brutal. But that doesn't always mean that we're just going to go straight up from there, right? I mean, you could just have a period of kind of like this meandering for a while. Link. Now, Link's been strong already. Link was kind of one of the first to buck the trend. You can see Link put its absolute low in on the 24th of July. And so during this carnage that we've seen in August, Link is still holding up relatively well. It's trending higher, making a series of higher lows on the daily charts. And so this one's still looking pretty good here. It's getting a little shaky up here near the top, a little volatile, but still looking pretty good. Right now it's up about 78%. That's not too shabby. At one point was up 99%, okay, 100%. Had doubled from the bottoms. And it's just amazing that alts can still, you know, just have those quick pumps, especially the smaller cap names. Where's Link at now? Now that it's doubled, Link is sitting at about $90 million market cap. So that's amazing. Is there a head and shoulders forming on the BTC USD chart? Are you looking at the daily chart or the 1 hour chart? What time frame are you looking at? Because if you look at the BTC daily chart, that's a good question, because someone was asking earlier, they were saying, hey, if this thing rallies and we get just another run, is that going to be a head and shoulders? Technically, it is, right? You have this guy here, and then you have the head there technically. But keep in mind, the head and shoulders reversal pattern is technically a topping formation that you see at the top of a move. That's usually how you play that. But that doesn't discount the fact that if it does break support, it's going to be the same effect, basically, right? You're technically breaking support and then you're breaking down. And at the end of the day, it's the same effect. So, so technically, it could be forming that. But at the end of the day, we've already seen the downtrend that's broken down right now. This feels like a bounce. And if it pulls over and rolls down, then yeah. All right. Let's keep going. We'll do a few more, guys, and we will wrap this up. I appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate the likes. Appreciate the thumbs downs for the haters and the trolls. Let's see here. Left shoulder has to be higher than the right shoulder. Yeah, on a pure head and shoulders, technically. I mean, it doesn't have to be. When's the Node apparel coming out? Yeah. Minimal branding. I got an advanced HODL technology shirt with my logo on it. I'm not lying. All right. Gonna do a few more. What am I looking at? Lumens. Haven't looked at Stellar Lumens. Looking at Lumens on the dollar chart here. Stellar Lumens dollars kind of sitting tight here. It's definitely range bound here, not a whole lot. Very choppy. Man, Stellar's been trying to form, but Stellar has the benefit of some news and some partnerships and a lot of that. So it has held up a little bit here recently, trying to form a little bit of a range here. But it's kind of just range bound. It's right. It's a sideways, definitely a sideways market there. Let's look at it versus BTC. I'm guessing it's trending a little higher since Bitcoin's been dropping. Yeah, it's kind of rolling over though, to be honest with you. Looks like it's rolling over there. All right, we'll do a couple more here. Let me see, NEO. Let me go back to NEO. I was on a trade on NEO earlier today. It's still technically holding up a little bit. So I know I'm still in this trade without looking, without checking. I know I'm in the trade still, so still holding up, but I'm going to be watching this here. If it breaks below these guys, then it's time to step aside and see what happens next. BNB. Yeah, BNB was setting up nice earlier today too. It was looking like a potential ascending triangle was forming, but starting to break below that trend line. Not looking too shabby here. Not looking pretty at all. EOS. Yeah, EOS, same thing. Had that nice breakout earlier. And trying to hold up. It's a little bit of a pullback on this 1 hour, but at this point, it's really starting to negate this entire move, right? You see 4 hours pulling in, starting to get undercut this breakout point. So not what you want to see. You know, a pullback is normal, but ideally you want to see it hold this breakout point and not fully retrace it. Could still hold, but it's just not going to be, doesn't look as bullish unless this current hour just really reverses now. VETs, let's check out the V-Chain Thor. V-Chain Thor, man, what a smackdown that one had too. It's holding up all right. This is such low volume here. It's up about 25, 26% versus BTC from the lows. It's had a very nice bounce here. Let me go to the bear chart here. So you can see once it debuted, had that nice pump and then just smack. And so is it an oversold bounce? Absolutely. Look at this. I mean, could bounce 50% and still be below the 10 EMA. So it's crazy to see how stretched that went to the downside. You were brave enough to pick it up. Good for you. Oh, man. Smash the likes. Thank you, Kurt. All right. I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I'm just kind of watching, looking through the charts here and seeing if there's any more on the comments that I missed. I probably missed. I'm sure I did. The comments come fast and quick. Appreciate you guys hitting those likes. Appreciate you guys being here. We'll take a look at the markets. I'll probably post another update late today, depending on what the market does, and we'll go from there. So thanks for watching. Until next time, take care, everyone.